to Women Together, everybody. It's lovely to see some new faces today. And our topic today is, what does Islam say about terrorism, extremism, war and tolerance? Is it true what we hear in the media? Is it all right what we hear in the newspapers and in the news? You know, is Islam a terrorist religion? Is it extreme and rigid in all its ideas? What does it say about war? Is war allowed in Islam? And do we tolerate other religions? This is why I've got a world here with all the different religious signs on there. The religious symbols are all on there. In the religion before Islam, if you look at all the previous prophets had already come, and there was ignorance and darkness in Arabia. There was barbarism and ruthlessness. There was sexual slavery, nudity and persecution of women. There was usury and exploitation. There was fear and terror, and there was class and colour discrimination. So there was actually extremism and terrorism going on before Islam came. Did you know that? But did you know Islam actually came to get rid of terrorism? So if we look at the times after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came, did you know after he came, he established knowledge and light, kindness and mercy, woman's status and rights, justice and fairness, peace and security, love and brotherhood. He taught us to respect all religions. He preached to set free the captives. He gave animal rights, and he taught us to visit the sick. All those things, okay? And all of that got rid of terrorism. So we will look at all of that in a minute in detail. This is a very interesting chart. This is all about the descendants of Abraham. So we believe in Adam and Eve at the top. We believe they were the first people on the land. And from there, all the prophets came, and they are all related to one another. We are all brothers and sisters of one another. We are all related to one another, and all the prophets are all related to one another as well. And as you can see, from Abraham came Isaac, from Isaac came Moses and Jesus, and from Abraham's other son Ishmael, we believe another prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him, came right at the end. So all three religions are linked: Judaism, Christianity and Islam. And Muslims' perspective is that all mankind is from Adam, so we are all descendants from the same ancestor. That makes us all brothers and sisters of one another. And did you know that all the prophets and messengers from Adam to the present day were all from different nations? Where was Moses from? Where was Moses from?
Egypt.
Egypt, good. And Jesus was from Israel or Palestine, whatever you want to call it. Prophet Muhammad was from?
From Arab.
Arabia, okay. All three were from different countries, but yet we living in England still follow their religion, don't we? We still follow their religions. No one was British, and yet we all follow all of their religions, and within Christianity a lot of saints were also from different faiths, and we follow all their religions. Okay. And did you know that in the Quran it was revealed, O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you into peoples and tribes so that you may come to know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah, or God, is the most righteous of you. Indeed, God is knowing and acquainted. That's actually, if anybody wants to look it up, in chapter 49, verse 13. It's Surah Hujurat. And in there, it explains to you that there is no racism in Islam. We are all made to live with one another so that we can get to know one another, not to build walls between us, a bit like what Donald Trump is doing with Mexico and things. We're there to learn from each other, learn about each other's cultures, what they eat and how they are clothed. And it also tells us that the nations are not being favoured because of their wealth or their power or race. As you can see, whether they're rich, poor, white, black, doctor or street sweeper, they are all the same inside. Can you see? Yes, their skeletons are all the same inside. None of them are inside, when they go and meet God, will be judged on their status in this world. So whether you are a doctor or a street sweeper, it's what is the goodness in your heart that you will be judged on. And God created human beings as equals who are to be distinguished from each other only on the basis of their faith and piety. All aspects of Islam promote peace and justice. And did you know that the surah, the verse that I'm talking to you about, the chapter, Gujarat, contains etiquettes and norms to be observed in the Muslim community, including proper conduct towards the Prophet, an injunction against acting on news without verification, okay? And also, there is a call for peace and reconciliation, as well as injunctions against deformation and suspicion and backbiting. All of that chapter deals with all of those things. That then ends up with a peaceful society, if you are following the religion properly. And Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, preached that everyone is equal no matter what race, gender, wealth, or social status you are. Everybody is equal. There is so much equality in Islam. Did you know that before Prophet Muhammad passed away, in his last sermon, he gave a great big talk up on the mountain of mercy, and he said all mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over black, nor a black has any superiority over white, except by piety and good action. So you know there's all this discrimination against blacks nowadays. It's not allowed in Islam. And Prophet Muhammad himself showed us many examples. Did you know he chose an African slave to give the call to the Muslim prayer? And he was the poorest and the darkest amongst the companions. Who knows the name of that?
Bilal.
Bilal. Well done. You're clever, aren't you? She's getting all the questions right. Some of the others can have a go.
Why don't you answer?
Yeah, why don't you two answer as well? Okay, but you are clever, mashallah. You are a very, very clever lady. Okay. The other thing that we are asked to do in our religion, apart from all of these verses in the Quran, we are asked to copy the Prophet. The best way to defend the honor of the Prophet, peace be upon him, is to act like him. This is the Sunnah, which is the other part of our faith. So one part is the Quran, and the other part is to follow his sayings and the way he led his life. Does anybody know why we follow Prophet Muhammad? What happened to him? What happened to him as a child? When he was a baby? Does anybody know? What happened to him?
Should I tell that?
Yes, come on then.
His heart was purified and he received the messages from Allah.
Good.
And, so that's why we follow him.
Excellent.
He didn't
Excellent.
do anything on his own.
Excellent answer. His heart was washed when he was a baby. In fact, it was washed twice. Once when he was 4 years old, the black spot was taken out of his heart, which means he had no sin, he committed no sins, everything he did we know was pure. Okay? And the evil side of him had submitted to God as well, the Qareen, we call it the Qareen, had submitted to God as well. So everything he did we know is correct, and this is why we follow his example. Okay? And he had also took on board all the other prophets' examples as well. Jesus was the prophet just before Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he followed his example as well and told us a lot about him as well, like giving to charity and things like that. So let's carry on and let's look at some examples. Now, when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, became a prophet, how was he treated by other people? And all the prophets are treated like this normally. How was he treated by the people when he started telling everybody, start worshipping God, one God?
Badly, very badly.
Yes, and what did they do?
Making fun of him, of them.
Yes, good, excellent. You're brilliant. I like you. I'm sorry.
I didn't go for this.
Okay, that's my sound effects. So people laughed at him. Like they mocked Jesus as well. Didn't they mock him as well? So they laughed at him. And how many a prophet we sent among the former peoples, but there would not come to them a prophet except that they used to ridicule him. Okay? That is in chapter Az-Zukhruf, chapter 43, verses 5 to 7. Okay? But what was his reaction? He never fought back to them. He just stayed quiet. Sabr, patience. He had patience. He never ever fought back to them. Okay? And then there were so many other evil things. There was a horrible lady, and she used to put what outside his house?
Kura.
Yes, rubbish. Okay? She used to throw rubbish on him when he used to come out, and she used to put rotten meat outside his house as well. So when he used to come out, there used to be a horrible putrid smell. Yet he never said nothing to her. Do you know, he completely ignored her. And sometimes she would even put thorns in his pathway. There was another lady, actually, Abu Lahab's wife, who would put thorns in his pathway. He never said nothing to any of them. And one day, this lady, he came out of his house and there was no rubbish there. So he asked that, where's that lady gone? You know, the lady who puts rubbish in front of my house. Where's she gone nowadays? And somebody said, do you know what? She's really, really ill, she is. She's not well. She's in bed and she can't come out of bed. Well, a normal person would say what goes round comes round. Good for her. That's what we would say, wouldn't we? Serves her right. But do you know what he did? He went to her house. He said, how are you? I heard you're not feeling well. Are you okay? And do you know what happened to her? She started crying. She goes, I cannot believe that you have come to my house when I have been so horrible to you. After everything that you did, you've come and you've visited me in my house. And she goes, I don't know what religion it is that you follow, but I want to be like you. If your religion preaches to go and visit people when they're horrible to you, I want to be like you. So that is one example of somebody who did convert to Islam, and it was with his example that she converted to Islam. She took her shahada then and there on the bedside. Okay, so Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he continues to inspire millions of lives. He inspired people to care about health, human rights, coexistence, women's rights, the environment, animal welfare, charity, equality, social justice, education. Okay? So many things he put into place. And he achieved a big balance by showing us his example. And then there was another person, I've already mentioned Abu Lahab's wife, but did you know that she was horrible? She used to take pine leaves, she used to take leaves out of the palms, they were like spindles, like splinters, and she would throw them in his pathway. And he never ever said anything to her. And he was patient until one day God revealed a surah, a chapter of the Quran that sorted her out in one go. Basically, he said to her that, first of all, her husband, who was called the father of flames, he will perish, his hands will perish, no profit to him from all of his wealth and all of his gains, and burnt soon will he be in the fire of blazing flame, i.e. hell, and his wife shall carry the crackling wood, the same pine leaves that she used to come out, she will carry those, and that will be fuel for her fire. And you know the spindles that she used to hurt the Prophet, a rope will be made out of that palm leaf fibre, and it will go around her neck. And that was directly from God. That sorted those two out, didn't it? Okay? So everybody got really scared, yet the Prophet never ever said anything. Who knows the chapter of the Quran I'm talking about here? Which surah am I talking about, this story? What's
Surah Lahab.
It is Lahab. Well done, excellent. Okay, Farad is the star of the show today.
Oh,
Definitely.
brilliant. I knew that.
Okay, and then more bad things happened just before, right at the end in Mecca, when he was really trying hard to try and convince people to worship the one God, because there was so much idolatry going on. People boycotted his business. He was a merchant. And not only did they boycott his business, they boycotted everybody else's business who followed him as well. And all those people, they ended up poor. And his wife Khadija, at the end of her life, poor thing, was begging on the streets for money. Yet he still didn't do anything. And there was another place where he went to Taif, where he ended up getting a rock thrown on his forehead and he bled. Still he didn't do anything. But what he did do was he quietly went to the other city, to Medina. This is called the Hijrah. This is the journey from where he was born, Makkah, to Medina, the other town. He didn't do anything, didn't fight back, didn't throw a rock back, nothing. Just patience. And that's the example that us Muslims have been asked to follow. Okay? So there is a lot of tolerance in Islam. Do you think we have tolerance against other faiths? Are we tolerant against other religions? Are we? Yes? Yes or no? I'm green. Yes. Okay. We've got Christians here today. You're a Christian, aren't you? Yes? We're tolerant, aren't we? Others I'd say, no, only Muslims allowed. I would have put it on the poster. Only Muslims allowed. Yes? So we are supposed to be tolerant in Islam. And did you know that Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, he made so many really good ties with other religions. There was a Christian king in Ethiopia, and he made really good ties. He actually went there to visit. And did you know that 2 of his wives, one was Jewish and one was Christian? And he did this to make really good ties with all the different nations. So he was not racist at all. I can give you lots of other examples. So how does Islam view other religions? Was Islam spread by the sword? That's a common myth, isn't it, in the news? So did you know that Muslims ruled Arabia? Okay, Muslims were the lords of Arabia for 1400 years. For a few years the British ruled, and for a few years the French ruled. Overall, the Muslims ruled Arabia for 1400 years. Yet did you know that there are over 14 million Arabs who are Coptic Christians who still live there today? So they had the power, they definitely had the power to eradicate all those religions, but they didn't. Does anybody know which country in the Middle East has the most number of Christians in it? Anybody? Do you want to have a guess? No? Begins with a E. Egypt. Egypt is a Muslim country, yes? And there are a lot of Coptic Christian Arabs there. Additionally, Christian and Jewish minorities have survived in the Muslim lands of the Middle East for centuries. And here are some more countries. Morocco, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan all have thriving Christian and Jewish populations over the past 13 centuries. So, Christians since generations, that is what Coptic Christians means. If the Muslims had used the sword, there would not have been a single Arab who would have remained a Christian. Did you know that? And there has been religious tolerance of Muslims. In 1492, Spanish monarchs decided to expel all Jews from Spain. The Ottoman Sultan Bayezid II ordered his navy to rescue persecuted Jews and offer them safety in the Ottoman Empire. So there are the most number of Jews, did you know, in the Middle East. Remember, all the prophets before Jesus were born there. Moses was born in the Middle East, wasn't he? In Egypt. Yet there has never been a Holocaust there, only in Europe. the Holocaust against Jews was in Europe, wasn't it? Not in the Middle East, which is really, really interesting. Really, really interesting. Also, did you know that when the Holocaust did happen, where did all the Jews go and run to? They ran to the Middle East. So the Germans destroyed all their families and homes, and this is a real-life picture of Jewish refugees arriving in Palestine in 1947. You never get to hear about that on the news, do you? Okay? And did you know that when they went there, they had nothing? They had nothing. Some of them were actually naked. When they entered Palestine, they had no clothes and no shoes. The Jews were kicked out of every country in Europe, and Palestine was the only country to help and support helpless Jews. Okay? Yet, when we look now at Palestine, there are more Jews there than there are Muslims. Is that correct? Yes? So now when you look at Palestine, even though originally there were Muslims there are more Jews there now in Palestine. So obviously they have been given settlement laws and things. The Palestinians were the rulers there first, the Muslims. That everybody knows about. Okay? Okay, another one. Queen Elizabeth I asked Ottoman Sultan for naval assistance against the Spanish Armada in 1588. So he actually helped her in the Spanish Armada, and the Spanish were Catholics. She was Church of England, and they all came with their great big ships to the coast to invade England. And the Ottoman Empire was very, very strong at the time, and Queen Elizabeth I used Muslims to help her fight the Spanish Armada. Otherwise, the whole of England would be full of Spanish at the moment. Okay, that reference is from Islam in Britain, 1558 to 1685. Okay, we will have questions at the end, so you can write down questions and you can ask me at the end. So, is Islam respectful of other beliefs? What do you think so far? Yes, good. Based on what I've told you, it is. Let's look at other countries now. Muslims ruled Spain for 800 years and never used the sword to force people to convert. During this time, and up to when they were finally forced out, the non-Muslims, they were treated with the utmost of respect and had flourishing communities. That period of time is called the Golden Age of Islam, where all three religions, Islam, Christianity and Judaism, all lived together happily in peace and harmony. And even now, when you go to Spain, you can actually see some of the architecture there. I don't know if anybody's been to Alhambra Palace and places like that. It's absolutely amazing. What about India? Muslims ruled India for 1,000 years. Which empire are we talking about here? Which big empire was in India?
Mughal.
Good, the Mughal Empire, well done. And Muslims, for 1,000 years, ruled India. And the opposition religion was Hinduism. Islam is the worship of one God, Hinduism is the worship of many gods. If it was up to the Mughals, they could have killed each and every Hindu in that land. They were in power. But who is the most religion at the moment in India? What is the highest religion at the moment in India?
Hinduism.
Hinduism. 80% of India today is Hindus. Okay? So if it was up to Muslims, they could have killed them all, but they didn't. They were even under rule. In fact, did you know that there are a few Mughal emperors whose wives were Hindu as well? The Taj Mahal is one example, isn't it? Okay? The Taj Mahal was built for his wife and she was Hindu.
Jodhabai.
Which one?
Jodhabai.
Jodhabai. Is that what his name was?
Yeah.
Okay. So Islamic law protects the status of minorities. Now this is very interesting. If there is a Muslim in a non-Muslim land, we have to follow the law of the land. So we are in Britain, we follow the law of this land. But if a Christian comes to our lands in a Muslim country, it is up to them, they can follow their own law. Isn't that amazing? How tolerant is that? So Islamic law protects the status of minorities. Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, had a very peaceful nature. He was extremely tolerant, highly protective of the non-Muslim minorities living in the Muslim state. The Prophet said, whoever oppresses any non-Muslim, I shall be his prosecutor on the day of judgment. He himself will be. So Islamic law permits non-Muslims to set up their own courts and implement their own family laws. I think that is absolutely beautiful. Yet we are in this country, we have to follow the law of the land, which is why ISIS are wrong, and I will be coming up to ISIS in a minute. They are not Muslim, because they want to implement their own laws in a land that is Christian, which they're not allowed to do. It is not in their religion to do that. So we hate ISIS for corrupting up our religion. What about extremism now? The Quran says, let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. And that's actually written in the Quran. And extremism. Did you know that Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, pronounced a firm warning, never be extreme regarding religion. Many nations have been destroyed before you only because of extremism in religion. That is what it says in Ibn Majah and Nisai, which are very strong hadiths. And what that means is we should follow the middle path. This is why my picture has a middle path going through the middle. It's the middle path. We are not allowed to be extreme. And another one, the Quran says, keep to the right course, i.e. the middle course, as you have been commanded. And also those who turn with you to God and do not exceed the bounds. He sees what you do. That's chapter 11, verse 112. Okay? Allah sees what you do. God is seeing what you're doing. And did you know that even in Surah Fatiha, the very first chapter of the Quran, it tells you it asks guidance from God to put you through the straight path. Not a windy extremist path, a straight path in the middle. Okay? So, too extreme and it's hard to follow the religion is, too lenient and there are no boundaries. So our religion is nice and easy, right in the middle. It has the boundaries, but it's not too extreme that we can't follow it. Otherwise, why is it that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world? If Islam is so hard to follow, why would people even convert to it? There's a big conversion rate to Islam at the moment. There's some food for thought, isn't it? And did you know that in Islam, if anyone kills an innocent person, it will be as if he has killed the whole of mankind. And if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he has saved the whole of mankind. And that is actually in the Quran, chapter 5, verse 32. Okay? And the problem there, again, is ISIS. They are killing innocent people, aren't they? This is why it is very, very important to understand that ISIS, not only are they killing themselves, which isn't allowed, which we will discuss in a minute, but they are killing other innocent people, which is wrong, very, very wrong. We are not allowed to do that, and that is actually in the Quran. So people can't even say that, oh, you know, that is just us coming out with it. Okay? Do not cause harm nor respond to harm with harm. That's Prophet Muhammad, peace upon his word. And there you go, there's an example. Do not respond to harm with harm. I gave you 4 examples there. People were mocking him, he didn't harm them. The woman was throwing rubbish on her, we didn't harm. They were not harmed. Okay? What was the other example? They were boycotting his business, he didn't harm them. Somebody threw a stone on his forehead in Taif, he didn't harm them, he didn't throw a stone back. He lived that peaceful nature. He actually lived that peaceful nature. Okay? So what does Islam say about war? Does anybody know what Islam actually says about war? Come on then.
If someone tries to hurt you or force you to leave your land, so you can answer back.
Yes.
In a name of
so
war.
if somebody comes right up to you,
Yeah.
they're about to kill you, how can
Self-defense.
you let yourself be killed? Self-defense only. Okay? You're not allowed to instigate war like, a little bit like what's happening now. I'm not scared to speak out. The Russians and all the Americans' business that's going on. That's initiating war, isn't it? Okay? War is the last resort and is subject to the rigorous conditions laid down by the sacred law. Islam permits fighting in self-defense only. As Muslims see it, injustice would be triumphant in the world if good people were not prepared to fight for a righteous cause. It lays down strict rules of combat that include prohibitions against harming civilians, and homes or land of the enemy is also forbidden. And there are so many restrictions, did you know? Fighting in God's cause against those who fight, don't overstep the limits, it says in the Quran. God does not love those who overstep the limits. That's in chapter 2, verse 190. It actually says that do not go over the limit. Islam only permits war in specific and dire circumstances. It keeps warfare at a level of mercy and respect for the enemy that no other army has been able to reach. The Prophet sometimes had to fight for the mere survival of his people, but once this serenity was ensured, he immediately reverted to peace and diplomacy. There is a rigid code Muslims must abide by in deciding when they can fight, and the fighting should be, and how the fighting should be conducted. War itself is despised and is a last-minute resort only. Last option when all other attempts at peace have been made. The only time when a believer is allowed to take up arms is when they are defending their own lives and the lives of their people, when they see that the weak are being oppressed in acts of tyranny, and when they are prohibited from practicing their religion. That's what it says in the law. Okay? And there are so many prohibitions even while you are doing a war. So many. Did you know it says neither kill a child, nor a woman, nor an aged man, bring no harm to the trees, nor burn them with fire, especially those which are fruitful. We will talk about each of these in a minute, why we're not allowed to kill in a war, these things. Slay not any of the enemy's flock, save for your food. You are likely to pass by people who have devoted their lives to monastic services. Leave them alone. Now, in Islam, we don't believe in monasteries. There's no such thing as a monastery. When Islam came, we were asked to practice our religion while we are doing our everyday lives and not going to monasteries and keep the religion in there. This is why you see nun-type figures outside in public. Yes, nun. We look like nuns, don't we? But we're not confined to just a mosque or a church or a monastery. Yet, he told us to leave them alone. You're not allowed to kill monks. Okay? Leave them alone, leave them in their caves. Leave the hermits in their caves. You're not allowed to kill a priest. Okay? Don't destroy a place of worship. Don't destroy buildings. And Abu Bakr, who was the next Khalifa after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed away, he did these rules of warfare dictated to his army, because a lot of wars started as soon as Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed away. So Islam makes a clear distinction between combatant and non-combatants. It's basically only supposed to be soldier to soldier only. Okay? And it doesn't allow the killing of innocent people. Prophet Muhammad prohibited Muslims from harming monks in their monasteries or hermits in their caves. So now we're going to go through each category. Why is it that we are not allowed to kill women in a war?
They can look after the children and the elderly.
Good. They are to raise the next generation, it says on there, okay? It's from women that the whole world comes. If women were killed, there'll be no world left. We are the world, okay? Not only that, when Islam came, the status of women went really, really high. Women were oppressed before Islam. Islam came to liberate women, despite what you hear in the media, okay? So, it said, do not kill a woman. Why are we not allowed to kill children? What's the reason?
Innocent. They don't harm others. Innocent.
Yes, they're innocent.
Yeah.
Okay?
They're the next generation.
Yeah.
They are the next generation, and also they are completely innocent. What harm have they done to anybody? So you're not allowed to kill any children. Okay? What about the elderly? They're young and feeble, and if they're of another religion, why can't we smack them one? Are we allowed to? No, why
Again,
not?
they are harmless. Yeah.
They're harmless,
Yeah.
they're vulnerable.
Weak
They
people,
can't
yeah.
say themselves, they're weak.
Vulnerable.
Okay? So we are not allowed to kill an elderly person. And also, again, in Islam, the status of the elderly was really raised. We are expected as children to look after our parents in old age. They become like babies again, did you know? In the Quran it says the elderly become like babies again. So look after them. You know, their nappies, they might go on nappies, they might need liquid food to feed them again. They lose their teeth, they lose their hair, they stumble down when they walk. They need walking sticks, they need walking frames. The wheelchair is like a push chair, isn't it? So the cycle goes round again. So a lot of stuff in the Quran about looking after the elderly. Look after the elderly. Again, disabled people, not allowed to kill any sick people or disabled people. Again, they're vulnerable, aren't they? And they have no sin, a lot of them. They don't know what's going on. So not allowed to kill anyone in a wheelchair, whether it's from your religion or a different religion. Okay? And did you know it even goes down to trees? Like my sound effects makes you think you're in a forest, doesn't it? Okay? So you're not even allowed to cut down a tree. Does anybody know why that is?
They must have known now.
To give shade and oxygen.
Oxygen, fruits,
Good.
shade.
Good. Excellent. Excellent. Oxygen. Without oxygen we can't live. You said fruit. Brilliant answer. And shade. Yes, it provides shade and habitat. This is why I've got all these squirrels and birds flying around. Habitat for the animals. So trees, we're not allowed to really cut them down. And in a war, we're not allowed to destroy even trees. And the other thing linked with trees is crops. And even bees, did you know? Even bees, nests and things, we're not allowed to destroy them. They're in the Quran. There's a chapter named after the bee. Okay? And we have to be, and honey was actually one of the things which the Prophet loved to eat. And crops is food for the land, isn't it? Wheat. What could we do? We wouldn't be able to, even if you think about pizzas and things, it's all made out of crops. If you look at the original staple foods and go right back to the original foods, they're all from crops, aren't they? Wheat, barley, oats, rice, all of that kind of stuff. Not allowed to even destroy that. And cattle. Okay? We're not allowed to kill any animal except for eating as well. So lambs, cows, sheep, chickens, that kind of stuff, only for eating purposes. And right down to wells. In Islam, wells were very, very important because there was no water in some of the Islamic lands. If we look at the deserts of Arabia, there was no water, was there? And because of the water being very, very scarce, people in Islam, we had to look after the wells where all the water is and things like that. And that actually includes poisoning water sources. That's not forbidden as well. Not allowed to poison any water to make other people die. Okay? And then the last bit is also the Prophet Muhammad's instructions to soldiers. There was a war ethical code, extra things. Forgive and release captives. Okay? Anybody you do capture, release them. Don't kill those who have surrendered. Be good to the prisoners and feed them. Did you know that he himself had very, very dry bread? and to everybody else he would give dates to all the prisoners. Don't kill anybody who has run away. Don't enforce Islam. You're not allowed to force Islam. So you're not allowed to get a knife and say your Shahada and become Muslim. Not allowed to do that. There is, did you know, no missionaries in Islam. They don't exist. Because like in my previous slide, there's no compulsion in religion. We're not allowed to. It's got to come from the heart. It's got to come from the heart. And don't disfigure the dead. So mutilation, all of that kind of stuff is not allowed. Conditions placed upon the soldier in battle are of utmost respect for the enemy and for human life. For example, there's no torture, no killing of the wounded or defenseless, and the return of corpses to the enemy is honoured. So any corpses are returned back to their land to be buried in their own lands as well. There's no mutilation of the enemy bodies. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, commanded the Muslims to treat the prisoners of war with utmost kindness. The Muslims obeyed, and he gave his own example by giving his own meals to the prisoners. Is suicide bombing allowed then?
No.
No, why not?
Suicide is never allowed in Islam.
Yes,
In any
two
case,
reasons.
In any case.
Allah decides when someone's life ends, and plus you're not allowed to harm other people, right?
That's haram.
Good, good. Got that, everybody? Not allowed. So ISIS, you are wrong, okay? You are not allowed to commit suicide. It is up to God to decide when we are going to die. Did you know that one of our beliefs out of the 7 is called the Imani Mufassal, is to believe in destiny. To believe in destiny, and only God writes our destiny, and only He knows when we are about to die. We are not allowed to take our own lives. Not only that, kill other innocent people with it as well. It is not allowed. So none of you should wish for death. This is what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said. None of you should wish for death because of a calamity befalling him, even if a calamity befalls you. Even if you lose your husband and your children in war, you're not allowed to commit suicide. But if he has to wish for death, he should say, "Oh Allah, oh God, keep me alive as long as life is better for me, and let me die if death is better for me." Okay? And did you know that apart from this problem, it even says in our sayings that if you do commit suicide, first of all, it is from Satan, the devil. And if you do, did you know that in hellfire, you reenact that again and again and again. You reenact that, killing yourself with poison or whatever, again and again and again, eternally in hellfire. So that is exactly what it says in our books. Jihad, is it about holy war?
It's about struggle, isn't it?
Good. The misunderstood and overused term jihad means struggle. Jihad as an Islamic concept can be on a personal level in a struggle against evil within oneself, struggle for decency and goodness on the social level, and struggle on the battlefield if and when necessary. So I struggled today to come out of my house, to run women together, and I'm going to a funeral afterwards. That's a struggle. Yes? Some of the ladies might have struggled to wear a hijab today because they might have got some racial abuse out there. That's a struggle. Some of our children are struggling in their studies. That's jihad. Jihad, there is no word for it, did you know, in the English language. Jihad is actually an Arabic word, and there are so many words in Arabic language which you can't even translate to English. So this is the most common way we can describe it, and I am going to put a video on in a minute. So smiling in tough moments is jihad. Do you know, recently I was really, really ill. Really ill. And I was standing up and I had to give a lecture. And I was crying inside, but I struggled and I carried on smiling, interacting the audience, and I was being filmed as well. So that's the struggle, okay? That's jihad. Struggling for good deeds is jihad. Keeping patience in hard times. How patient do we have to be sometimes with our children or with our husbands or with anybody at work? Taking care of old parents in a loving way is jihad. Forgiving is jihad. Jihad is not what the media shows, but what the Quran says. It means to strive and to struggle. Okay? And I'm now going to put on a video which will explain jihad in greater detail.
Jihad in the news is often translated to mean holy war, but holy and war are both English words with Latin origins, so it probably doesn't mean exactly that. According to Google Translate, the individual words exist separately in Arabic. So what is jihad? Does it refer to a set of conflicts, like how the Crusades refer to a set of Christian holy wars? Nope, it does not. So why do they need the extra word jihad to describe a holy war? Does it even mean holy war at all? Well, the short answer is no. What jihad really means is struggle. It's a major religious duty that many consider to be the unofficial sixth pillar of Islam, right below self-control, giving to the poor, and visiting Mecca. Technically, jihad means a struggle in the way of Allah. Fringe radical militant groups think that attacking the West is part of that struggle, but the majority of Muslims don't. Most of them are actually opposed to using the word jihad in that way because it associates the word with terrorism. So what does jihad mean to them? Well, in Islam there are two types of jihad, the outer and the inner. The outer is the kind that defends Islam against outside aggression, like they did in the Crusades. The inner represents the internal spiritual struggle to seek self-improvement in the way of Allah. So basically, it's the struggle to be a better Muslim, both spiritually and in practice. The following passage, which is from a highly debated Islamic text called the Hadith, sums it up pretty nicely. In it, Muhammad says to a band of returning warriors who have come from the lesser jihad to the greater jihad, the striving of a servant of Allah against his own desires. So despite the negative attention it gets, jihad can refer to some really wonderful things. There's even a website called myjihad.org that highlights good jihads, and it's part of an entire online movement devoted to taking the word back from Islamic extremists. Even Twitter has gotten in on it with a hashtag #MyJihad, where people tweet about their good deeds or positive struggles to help better themselves and their communities. Like, my jihad is to balance work and family life. My jihad is to challenge society norms and work towards improving our culture. My jihad is to keep the air in my country clean. And finally, my jihad is trying to appreciate the jihad in a place where the jihad is misunderstood. So see, it's really not as scary a word as you might think. It doesn't mean holy war, and if that hashtag is any indication, it has the power to change the world.
Okay, so that was my video, and now we will carry on. Okay, so like the lady explained, it's refraining from doing wrong, it's a fight against Satan, it's even in studying this jihad, saving people is jihad. Look at that fire officer, he's doing his jihad every single day. Anything against oppression, everything really. It's all to do with strive and to struggle. It is not only about holy war, like the media have hijacked everything. And ISIS is not Muslim, ISIS is not Islam. Terrorism has no religion. Tell me which religion tells you to go out and kill innocent people. Religions are all about peace and love and harmony. Okay? Before you blame Muslims or Islam for the crimes of ISIS, remember ISIS have killed over 100,000 Muslims. Except when they kill people in Syria or in any other lands, Iraq, we don't get to hear about it in the news. But one non-Muslim dies and it's all over the media. Okay, and I will come to that in a minute why all of that happens. But also we need to think that there is terrorism in all religions, extremism in all religions. So no one thinks that these people, who are these people? Who knows who they are?
Ku Klux Klan.
Good, Ku Klux Klan. No one thinks that these people are representative of Christians, do they? They caused a lot of havoc in America. Then why is it that so many people think that these people, ISIS, are representatives of Muslims? Okay? It's the same thing. We didn't blame the Germans for Hitler. We don't blame the Christians for the KKK. Do not blame the Muslims for ISIS. Anyone who is responsible for the murder of innocents has committed a crime against humanity, regardless of his or her religion. All religions teach good, no religions preach bad. Okay? And this is actually what is happening at in the media, and this is an Islamic perspective. So can you see that somebody is running after a Muslim person there, okay? And that's his foot, sharp foot and a knife, okay? And the television has turned over the picture and made it out that this man is killing this man. That is exactly what they do. Not literally, but that's exactly what's going on. Yeah? Twist everything. I have actually, myself, I'm always in the media, on the radio and everything. And I say I'm only going to go live. If I go live, I'm absolutely fine because whatever I say goes out there. If I do a pre-recording, bits are chopped out, bits are included in, and the whole meaning of what I say gets completely turned around. And the newspaper's done that before as well, so many times. So did you know that the last conversation I had with the BBC was I'm only going to do live interviews, which they do now, and they go straight out. And the newspapers, I have specifically said if you're going to put me in, it's got to be these words and nothing else. Because they do twist it. I've got first-hand experience. And did you know Muslims are never in the newspaper? For 4 years running, we've been feeding the homeless in Chelmsford. Huge event, huge event. Hundreds of dishes that the Muslims have made with their own hands and brought them in. And it's done in a church, and all the homeless are all Christian, all of them are. Every time I phone up that newspaper, first they never turn up. And if they do, they don't put it in. And I ask them, why didn't you put that in? Oh, I don't know why we didn't put it in. We didn't have enough space. And one lady actually turned around and said to me, good news is no news. And that really upset me. But if I had said to her, oh, I saw a terrorist in Basildon Town Centre killing someone, front page and news immediately. Because that is what sells the newspapers. And it's very sad. I went to Buckingham Palace recently to see the Queen. What can be bigger than that? What can be bigger than that? I've got an award from the Queen as a Muslim woman. Did you know I sent an article and a photo of me shaking hands with the Queen to Brentwood Gazette and Essex Chronicle? The first week they didn't put it in, they said there wasn't enough space. The second week they didn't put it in, and they didn't know why. And I said, I'm going to speak to your manager about this, because there was an ordinary teacher in that newspaper receiving a silly little certificate in assembly. And that was in double page. And I went to see the Queen. How many people go and visit the Queen? And they didn't bother putting it in. And I was very, very angry. So it's not good. Okay, so Islam is sometimes intentionally misrepresented. Some politicians, religious leaders and media have found an ideal scapegoat in Islam. By associating Islam with the inhumane acts of a handful, they have been successful in driving a larger number of people to vote for them, read their newspapers, and watch their television programs. So putting in bad news increases the ratings. Think of pop stars and actresses. You always think of them. Any charity they do never gets in the newspapers. Any adultery they committed, any gambling they did, or if they're out of debt, all of a sudden they're in the newspapers. And I remember actually when George Michael passed away, it was very, very sad because all of a sudden it was revealed he had given thousands to charity. But while he was alive, all they attacked about was him being gay, didn't they? And all the other lewd acts he got himself into and the rest. But never did they mention that he had charity, that he gave money to charity. So it's very, very sad. So my next slide says it all. Journalists are actually paid for promoting that Muslims are terrorists. That's where the money comes in. Okay? That is where the money comes in.
Same as mine.
Did you? By associating Islam with inhumane acts of a handful, they've been successful in driving larger number of people to vote for them, read their newspapers, watch their television programs. Did you also know that if a white British English person commits a terrorist act, it's portrayed differently? Has anybody noticed that in the news? Okay, so let's have a look. The BBC and Tabloid Guide to Running a Gunman related story. So here is a Muslim shooter, okay, and the headline is 13 billion Muslims held responsible. There's a black shooter, and all of a sudden it says that he is related to violence. If it's a professional shooter, he is a national hero. Can you see the colours becoming whiter and whiter? And then over here, a white shooter is a lone wolf, and I've seen that. Every time a white person shoots and things, he's a lone wolf. Somebody did this in America, and Donald Trump turned around and said he had a mental condition. Well, what about when the Muslims do it? Are they mentally stable? And within the Islamic news, we find out they are mentally unstable. They've been in prison and all sorts of backgrounds they are from. So they are a lone wolf, and they have problems or emotional issues. Okay? So that is how it is actually portrayed. Terrorists can be any ethnicity and any religion. Muslims are not the face of terrorism. They are not a threat. Terrorists are. And when terrorists do something bad, we are double scared. Did you know? First, we're upset because of everything that has happened in our own country, and we get upset when other people die, and then we're scared to go out. Every time a terrorist activity happens, I'm too scared to go to work the next day. And I feel ashamed, even though I didn't even do anything. I'm ashamed that, oh, what am I going to tell my boss now? I'm Muslim. I feel I'm representing Muslims. So it's very, very sad. If I were an Arab, the shooting would be terrorism. If I were a black, I would be a thug. But I'm white, so it's mental illness. That is the way it is portrayed, I'm afraid, out there. And the other worst thing is that we can't speak out. There are anti-Semitism laws there for Jews, and we're not allowed to say anything about them. But when it comes to Islam, because Islam is a relatively new religion in this country, there are yet no laws to protect them. So we don't have any freedom of speech at all. So people can laugh at us. Some of those Charlie Hebdo cartoons that came out to put Islam in a bad light, we couldn't speak up against them because there is actually no law against having that kind of stuff. Everybody can put us down and tell us all kinds of bad things. So why is Islam misunderstood? There are about 1.7 billion Muslims in the world. If Islam really promoted terrorism, you would all probably be dead by now. Muslims are standing against terrorism, persecution, killing of innocent people, and those who perpetrate injustice in the name of any faith. With an increasing number of Muslims speaking out against this falsehood, the true and peaceful nature of Islam is becoming more evident. So basically, Islam means peace. 1/5 of the world's population is reclaiming this peace as their chosen way of life. And the world may think we are terrorists. This is what the world thinks, what the world think of us, what non-Muslims think we do, what media shows Muslims do, what we actually are. So there are so many role models out there. We've got 2 boxing champions there. We've got lots of sports personalities like Mo Farah was the latest Olympic winner. We also have got the latest Nadia from Great British Bake Off as well. And did you know that big things like Muslims are the record breakers for giving the most amount of charity in the world is never portrayed out there, ever. And there are worse actually in other religions. So if we look at Idi Amin in 1972, 60,000 Asians were expelled by President Idi Amin from Uganda, many of whom were allowed to settle in Britain. And then Adolf Hitler, he used racism to rise to power. He proposed mass deportations. He promised to make Germany great again. He was an anti-Jew fascist. He blamed Jews for Germany's problems. He thought Jews should wear special IDs. And now we've got Donald Trump. And no matter how much you like Donald Trump, we all know he is racist. He wanted to build the wall between Mexico and the other countries. He uses racism to rise to power. He proposes mass deportations. He promises to make America great again. He's an anti-Muslim fascist. He blames immigrants for America's problems. What's the difference between him and Hitler? He thinks Muslims also should wear special IDs. This was all before he became president. He was coming up with all of these things. And yet he's a hypocrite. Is he American?
No, he's not.
No. His dad's parents were German. His mum's parents were Scottish. That's where he gets his red hair from. His mum was born in Scotland. His first wife was a Czech Republic. His current wife is Slovenia.
Somebody actually advertised that he is from Afghanistan.
Yeah. Both used him as an anchor husband to become citizens. And as president, he wants to get rid of immigrants. It's funny, isn't it? It makes me laugh. Do they not see it, though? Do they not see it? It's like Hitler wanted to make a blue-eyed, blonde-eyed nation, and he was brown-eyed with brown hair. How did that happen then? Do they not see it? So, do not also forget that America especially has invaded many lands, and that's history. So I'm not lying here. Okay, so remember, how many millions in America must have been killed? The Red Indians owned the whole of America. So let me get this straight. You're afraid of refugees coming to America, killing you and taking your property? Illegal immigrants must go back home. And then this Red Indian is saying, oh, seriously? So when are you going? Okay? It's just a little bit of comedy there, where we don't really think sometimes. And if it was the other way around, this is the American coming to the Red Indian. The Red Indian says, sorry, but we're not accepting refugees. There'd be a big problem, wouldn't there, if that is what happened. The biggest genocide in human history did not occur in Nazi Germany, but on American soil. 100 million Native Americans were slaughtered and lost their homeland. If you think of America now, how many Red Indians are there? They're just a handful, really. And also, this is another one which Donald Trump is trying to do. Jerusalem, originally we know that Jesus was born there, wasn't he? We know that. So here's Jesus chasing him out. Jerusalem is not yours to give to anyone. Okay? So he is, it's the same kind of thing that is going on in the world today. And 14 Muslim countries have been bombed and invaded by USA since 1980. And these are actually from a journal. We've got Iran, okay, Libya, Lebanon, Kuwait, Iraq, Somalia, Bosnia, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Sudan, Kosovo, Yemen, Pakistan and Syria. These are all the countries that have been bombed by America. Yeah, if one of those bombed America, we would all be in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah,
Deep, deep trouble. Okay? What about the European Union, the Brexit that's going on? That is actually un-Islamic because, again, remember the earlier slide about tribes getting to know one another. We have been put into nations and tribes to get to know one another, not to get rid of them. Surah Hujurat. So the Brexit stuff that's going on really is against Islam. And did you know that this picture is a real-life picture? These are not Syrians, they are Europeans trying to get to North Africa during World War II. So next time you think of closing the borders, and we're looking at Brexit here, you might want to check with your grandparents. We forget history sometimes, don't we? So this is my last slide about tolerance. And now we will have as many questions as possible. We'll put the lights on.
That was fun. I don't have to
Okay, any
talk
questions?
to Laura now. No, it was really good.
Thank you.
Well done.
And this is being filmed so that we can send it out to everyone who couldn't come today. But
Is
it's
it
really
about equality?
This is all about equality. This is Islam holding up the whole world. And around the whole world are all the flags, and these are all the different people with all their costumes on. Isn't that lovely?
It's nice.
Yes?
Very nice.
Okay, any questions? Have you got any questions? Because you're new today.
Oh, it's really interesting and it's just thinking.
Did you learn?
Can
I did a
You
lot.
learned
Can I ask you one question? How many things did you find in this whole lecture similar to your religion, to Christianity?
I think a lot. We are not,
Lots,
we are
yeah,
not,
yes,
we are
yes,
not different. We are
yes.
not, yeah.
You know, when you think of all the religions, each and every religion does not promote racism.
No.
The prophets themselves were from different lands. Moses was from Egypt. And Jesus was not white British English. I'm sure if Jesus was here, he'd have a lot to say to Trump, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So, you know, and when Jesus comes back again, we believe he's going to come back again. Who knows, will he be speaking English? He'll be classed as a foreigner. People will probably plot to kill him again. He'll be classed as a foreigner. He'll be speaking Aramaic. He will look like a Middle Eastern person.
I would like to see him.
Yes.
Inshallah. How can I live for 200 years?
Yes.
Well, no one knows when, do they?
Yeah.
Nobody knows when, yes. Okay, any more questions? There's not many questions today. It's usually to have lots of nice questions for the camera.
The one thing you said that about jihad.
Yes.
During your lecture, you were feeling ill and you were crying. I must say that even if you are not ill, you are fine. Whatever you are doing is jihad.
It is, it is. I could have got shot today
That-
if I had Donald Trump's supporters here. I could have easily have got shot today, couldn't I have?
But being ill and doing all this is on top of it.
Yes.
It's a bonus.
Yes.
But otherwise, whatever.
Yes. Everything that we
Yeah,
do in our
everything,
everyday lives is a struggle, isn't it? Coming here today was a struggle. We left
Exactly.
everything and came here today, and it's so lovely, isn't it? So lovely. Okay? Right, thank you very much for watching, and what we'll do now is we'll have some lunch before we have our guest speaker at 12 o'clock. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all right.